So I ended up pursuing that deal and bought it. I ended up buying that park for all in about 625, 650, right in that range, and then ended up selling it for $6.5 million 5 years later. So it was an absolute home run, and it was a big win. So I wish every deal was that, but it was literally a 10x the price 5 years later. Pretty awesome.
Welcome to the RealPropPro podcast, where strategy, innovation, and wealth converge to redefine real estate investing.
Hello, and welcome to the RealPropPro podcast. I'm your host, Ian Dattilo, fix and flip investor, JV partner, and rehab project manager based in Sacramento, California. At RealPropPro, we teach all aspects of real estate investing, from tax deed, tax lien investing, wholesaling, to fix and flipping. We also teach creative financing and multifamily. We don't just teach you, we equip you with the proper software, mentorship, and step-by-step guidance so you can get started doing deals. Please visit RealPropPro.com to get free resources, learn about live events, and see how to start building your real estate investment business today. Today's guest is Mario Dattilo, a mobile home park investor with 16 plus years of real estate investment experience. He is the host of the Mario Dattilo Show and founder of multiple investment companies. He not only owns a large portfolio of mobile home parks, but also actively coaches new real estate investors on how to enter this powerful niche. We'll talk about the mindset it takes, how to get started in mobile home parks, and how Mario helps others make it happen. Mario, welcome to the show.
Hey, Ian, glad to be here, man. Thanks for the invite, and excited about what you and your company are doing from an education and technology standpoint. Just excited to hang out with you for a bit. Let's talk shop.
So Mario, before we dive in, I'd love for you to introduce yourself in your own words and kind of let the listeners know a little bit more about you, not just your bio, but your story, your style, and what you do.
Can't say I've got a lot of style, but I can definitely tell you my story. So Mario Dattilo, live in Florida, been investing in real estate for a long time, longer than I care to admit, but it's given me a lot of education, I guess you could say. The longer you do something and you work on your skills and you keep, bumping your head, just the better you get at it, right? There's really no better education than time. And so I got started in business when I was still in high school, and I was 18 years old, started a marketing business with a couple of buddies of mine, and it went really well. I ended up having a ton of success, didn't end up going to college, and then the company that we started was actually contracted by a larger company. We had one client essentially, and that company ended up filing bankruptcy, which wiped us out completely too, because they were our only income stream. So I learned a hard lesson very early on at about 21 years old. Just went into complete financial ruins, and I got wiped out financially. I thought I was invincible. I thought I was going to be retiring by the age of, call it 25 and be done. And I ultimately had to start all over. But I'll tell you what, if you're going to, go into a financial collapse or really bad financial situation, do it young, because you got just a ton of runway to rebound. So I'm really thankful for it, because although it sucked, it was a great opportunity to learn a lot of very difficult things early on. So the first thing that I went into is a mortgage business with my partners. Like, okay, well, how do we make money? Well, at that time, this is probably 2006, I want to say, maybe 2005. We had, everybody was in the real estate business, so we started a mortgage company. I was never really a big fan of the mortgage business. To me, it just seemed like, trying to find the right fit for a product, and that really wasn't me. But as we kept growing, a lot of clients were coming to us and actually asking us, what real estate agent should I work with? Because we were the finance side. And so we kind of realized we should really start a real estate brokerage, and we did. And I offered up. I said, "Look, I'll do the real estate side." I had never been an agent before. I'd done a couple of wholesale deals and signed some option contracts essentially. And I was like, "Look, that's way more up my alley than the finance side." So I ended up becoming the managing partner of that business and ran a real estate brokerage for a couple of years, and then the market tanked. So in 2008, we all know what happened, and I started helping investors buy, distressed property. In doing that, I watched a lot of people make a lot of money, and that was great. I was excited to help them, but I realized that if I'm handling the acquisition side and the disposition side for them, then why don't I just go buy these properties myself? And so I went to my dad, who was actually in the construction industry his whole life, and I said, "Look, I can find us deals and I can sell us deals, and if I can even raise capital if needed, but I'm horrible with construction. So why don't you partner with me?" He was a custom home builder and a bunch of other things, and so we went into business together. I got out of the brokerage business and flipped houses from about 2008 to about 2013. Started looking kind of on the tail end of that to get into some sort of reoccurring commercial property because I knew that flipping houses was just a job. Like I just had to keep on buying another house and another house and another house. And if I couldn't find one, I was out of money, right? Like the business came to a halt. And it's good when it's a distressed market, but when the market started to dry up and it was kind of more of a retail market again, it was pretty scary. And you catch yourself trying to, overpay just to get a deal. That's not a good business model. So started looking for apartments, had a very hard time finding a good deal on apartment buildings, and stumbled across a mobile home park and bought that. And that's kind of what opened up my eyes to the mobile home park / commercial real estate world. I've been doing it ever since about 2013. Own mobile home parks, a lot of mobile home parks, own some self-storage, own some light industrial and RV parks as well. And I've touched probably probably owned 8 or 9 different, probably 7 or 8 different property types over the years. So yeah. And then I have an education business that teaches people how to invest in mobile home parks and a fund and all kinds of fun stuff. So I'm excited to talk to you and give your listeners a ton of value that they can go take action on.
Man, it seems like you've done a lot in, a fairly short amount of time. It sounds
You can
like you've
do a
been
lot
very
over a
busy.
long time, though.
Yeah.
Most people haven't been in real estate for, what is it? It's 25, technically almost 20 years in real estate. It gives you some runway to have some fun and make some mistakes for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. So kind of along that point, can you kind of talk about your first, maybe we'll start with your first real estate deal overall. It sounded like you were doing maybe some wholesaling. Can you kind of talk about how that went? Also, it seems like a lot of people just getting started, just starting out in real estate investing kind of gravitate a little bit towards wholesaling. Can you talk a little bit about that first deal and kind of what attracted you to wholesaling?
Yeah. Yeah, I think wholesaling is a great way into the business, but I think it can also be a long-term profitable strategy as well. It doesn't have to be just for newbies. I think what mostly happens is people get into wholesaling because it's low cost, low risk, and almost anyone can do it if they can find a good deal. But then they kind of, in their mind, graduate and they say, okay, I want to start flipping houses now, and I want to start rehabbing, and I find money, and I can make bigger spreads, and then I want to buy and hold. And that's all great, but in many situations, it's probably better just to wholesale the deal and not actually take ownership. Nothing wrong with wholesaling. I think it's a great business model. We actually wholesale commercial property now. That first deal was kind of interesting. I'd read some books and self-taught, I guess you could say, and came across a deal. This is early on. Think like 2005. So early internet age. And I found a deal online, and no, I'm trying to think. How did I find that? No, I did mailers. I mailed a bunch of distressed owners. I think they were either tax delinquent. Forgive me, 20 years ago, right? So going off of memory here. But yeah, I think I was doing some mailers, and it was probably tax delinquent or evictionless. And I got somebody to call me, and it was a home. I lived in the Twin Cities area of Minnesota, like around St. Paul, Minneapolis area at the time. And there was kind of a tertiary market, a market maybe an hour and a half away that had a golf course, one golf course. And there was a home on that golf course that this owner called me about. He happened to be in the mortgage business as well. And, he had bought it and thought he was going to move into it and decided not to. And I tied it up with an option contract, which is kind of funny now that I think about that. I was much more comfortable using option contracts than purchase agreements because I felt like I was obligated to perform with a purchase agreement where I wasn't obligated to perform with an option agreement, right? It's unilateral versus bilateral agreement. So I went into it with an option agreement, tied it up, and I ended up making like $14,000. I took it, I put it all over the internet, and again, early world of the internet. I think I put it on some, for sale by owner sites and things like that. And I got a
I
bite.
was
And
going
then
to say, was it posted on AOL?
no, it wasn't AOL, but it was definitely in that time period. But it was like a for sale by owner type of site, and ended up getting a buyer for it. I made, I think, $14,000 on that deal, and that was just incredible to me. I mean, $14,000 to send out a piece of paper and get it back and then find somebody else to buy that piece of paper off of me. And that was it. And then the next deal I ended up doing was significantly larger. I found a builder in the Twin Cities area that had, I think the sale price was like $750,000. So I went from a, $180,000 house to a $750,000 house, and I was able to wholesale that. And I want to say I made like $70,000 or $80,000 on that deal. And I was like, okay, I'm on to something, right? And I did that with an option contract as well, which is crazy. I can't believe the builder let me do it, but worked out great. And I think it was 72 or $74,000 I made on that deal. And I was off to
Wow.
the races. Keep in mind, that's when I had a mortgage business. So I had a full-time job, I guess you could say, because I was working in the business, recruiting cold callers and running a call center. And, I was partner in that, but it was a full-time thing. So that just kind of goes to show you that anybody can really wholesale or do any real estate on the side if they really want to. You just have to be willing to put in the effort.
Yeah, I would. I really want to move on to mobile home parks, but just before we do, I really like what you touched upon there. People who are just getting started, they don't have to quit their job to do real estate investment.
You
Can you talk a
shouldn't.
little bit? Can you talk a little bit about that? You just said that you shouldn't. Can you elaborate on that and kind of explain where you're coming
Yeah.
from as a seasoned investor?
Yeah, I would say, flipping houses, wholesaling houses, you can definitely make money, right? But until you really got a good business system figured out, you probably shouldn't quit doing what you're doing, because it's going to be rocky. You're going to have mistakes. You're going to learn the hard way on a lot of things. And if you go quit your job just to start wholesaling or flipping, you might have some rough months. And so it's just it's important to understand that in that world, especially a trading type business, it is a business. I think what a lot of times people do is they go into real estate with the mindset of, I'm becoming an investor. No, you're not. You're going into real estate as a real estate entrepreneur. You're starting a business in the real estate investment world, okay? Flipping houses and wholesaling is not investing. That is a trading business, okay? It's the same as buying.
Speculation.
Yeah, you're buying cars and selling cars. You're buying widgets and selling widgets. And how you do that, it doesn't matter what you're selling. You're in a trading business model. You are not an investor. Okay. And that's okay. It's not a negative. It's just you're not a real estate investor. Okay. Um, so, especially on the wholesaling side, because you're selling contracts. But regardless, my point is until you have the business system really honed in, you're going to have some tough months. So that being said, you don't need to. Now, other people say, yeah, well, I'm going to go buy a bunch of rentals and then I'm going to quit my job. Chances are, just being real, single families, you're not going to quit your job for a long time buying single family rentals. It's a horrible thing to hold. Okay. There's a few times in a market that you might want to buy and hold single families for rentals. generally speaking, they're horrible investments. And you should only be flipping and trading those, okay? And wholesaling those, if you want to call it that, right? Um, and I forgot what your initial question was, but I think the biggest key here is don't quit your job, build a business model, and then once you've got it really honed in, then consider quitting your job.
Yeah, that was exactly what I was trying to, you know, learn from you, is like that whole process of how do you transition into the industry. Not quitting your job is sounds like what you're recommending for anyone who's just getting started.
I mean, if you're like a stay-at-home mom or you have some other part-time job, yeah, you can probably put a lot more time into it. But if you're providing for your family and, you're trying to build up some wealth, you wouldn't want to stop what is the consistent income stream. Now, being an entrepreneur at heart, I'm like, I always say burn the boats, right? Like go all in. But I think most people can't do that. They need that stability. And so you need to know yourself. Like I said, I started businesses since high school, but most people would want to do it on the side first. And I used to be at least much more comfortable with risk and just going all in and saying, I'm going to make it work. And I think you can do that when you're in your early 20s because you've got low risk, low responsibilities. But in my 40s, I would never do that. You know what I mean? I would keep what I have coming in first.
Great stuff. I really appreciate that advice. What first drew you into the mobile home park business? What got
Accident.
you into that?
It was an accident. It's a joke in the industry. Nobody ever um, grows up saying, I want to get into the trailer park business. They just don't, right? Like, number one, you don't think about it because it's not really a business that's in the forefront of your mind, but also it's not a sexy business. Everybody wants to be an astronaut or a president, right? So, that being said, I was looking for apartments and I was struggling to find apartment buildings. And a buddy of mine who is a commercial banker called me up and he said, Hey, I know you're looking for apartments, but there's a bank near you that's got a mobile home park that's defaulted on their loan and they're interested in selling you the mortgage. And we won't get into the details of like how mortgage transactions work and buying debt. But essentially he said, do you want to buy this mobile home park instead of an apartment building? And no, I don't want to deal with trailer parks. Like that's not even I'm going to buy apartment buildings. And it was in my backyard. So I went and checked it out. And then I looked at the numbers. I'm like, dang, this is way better deal than any other apartment building I've ever seen. This is a no-brainer. It had some hair, it had some risk on it for sure. It was a complex deal, but it had major upside. And so then I started looking at it closer and did some homework on kind of how they operate. It's like this is very similar to apartments. And so I ended up pursuing that deal and bought it. I ended up buying that park for all in about 625, 650, right in that range, and then ended up selling it for $6.5 million 5 years later. So it was an absolute home run, and it was a big win. So I wish every deal was that, but it was literally a 10x the price 5 years later. Pretty awesome.
So that was your first mobile home park transaction?
Yes. Now I'd bought
Wow.
mobile home parks shortly after that, so it's not like I bought that one, waited 5 years, sold it, and then bought more. I'd bought that one and then just kept buying them. But we ultimately exited that deal in 5 years and made millions. Yeah, pretty
Incredible,
awesome.
incredible.
And I would say that's probably an eye opener to some, but that's not that crazy. I mean, the multiple is crazy. Don't get me wrong, but in commercial real estate, it doesn't take a lot of deals to build up your net worth into the millions. Like it really doesn't. Single family, and I'm not picking on single family, I think it's just important to recognize this. It takes a lot more deals and a lot more time and a lot more effort to build up that wealth and, have a multi-million dollar net worth in single families. You do a few deals, one deal, you should be able to make at least $1 million on it. Like we're typically looking at deals that we will net across the lifetime of the deal at least, 7 figures. And that sounds braggy, but it's not. I'm just saying that's kind of how commercial real estate works. Bigger deals, but they're slower deals. It's just different.
Yeah. Um, how would you kind of mentioned that mobile home parks are similar to kind of like a multifamily, like apartment type of thing. Can you talk about how they're different?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, apartments, you own all the structures, right? You own the apartment building and the tenants just rent it. You're responsible for all the maintenance. You're responsible for, everything in that building. Where with mobile home parks, for the most part, you typically don't want to own the homes. The residents own their homes. They pay lot rent to have their home sitting on your land. So the only thing you're really maintaining is the land, the infrastructure, the common area, and the amenities. The residents maintain their homes, so you don't get calls about toilets and, all the different minor maintenance and repair items. Another way that it's different is when somebody moves out of an apartment building, you have a vacant unit, and you almost always have to put money into that unit to make it ready for rent again. Well, in the mobile home park world, because they own their home, they typically sell that home to another buyer. And we act more like an association would, where we just approve that buyer to buy that home and live in the community. They buy the home and they just keep paying the rent. Excuse me, like we don't miss a beat and we don't have to touch the home in most transactions or when most people move. We also have a lot less moving out and moving in. It's just a slower moving business because people own their homes. So they'll live there for, 10, 15, 30 years, where an apartment, on average, people turn every year and a half, right? So every 18 months, on average, in apartments, you're seeing that unit turn. We may have somebody that never moves for the entire time that we hold that property. So it's just a lot less turnover. There's a lot of benefits, or I guess you could say differences, in the mobile home park world, but those are probably the biggest, most noticeable ones for someone who's going to operate it.
And what would you say are some of the downsides as compared to apartments?
So what's a negative about mobile home parks compared to apartments? Yeah, I would
Correct.
say that, apartments you can lease up much faster. You own all the units, you can maintain them, you can control them. Where when you don't own the home, there's a process that you have to go through to hit them with a violation to improve their home. So, like, let's say you've got somebody with a bunch of junk in their yard. If I own the apartment building, I can just go clean up the junk. If someone's leasing the lot for me, I have to do a violation notice and then go through a process for them to get that corrected. Or if I want them to paint their home or something like that, it's a process. It's kind of more like a homeowners association. You have control, but it's a lot more, it's a lot slower, to get that resolved. Where on an apartment, I can fix it, right? It's my unit. And also, if you think about it, if you've got a vacant lot, in order to make that an economically occupied lot, meaning paying lot, I typically have to buy a home, bring it in, set it up, and then sell that home, which is much slower and much more capital intense than when I've got a down unit in an apartment. I might spend a few $1,000s to get it up and rentable again, and I'm back online. So, we don't see many homes come out of communities, but to fill up existing vacant lots, it is capital and time intense.
Now, does someone need to have a prior real estate experience, like other investments, like single family homes or like that? Or are you able to have, students come to you that know nothing about real estate investing and, get right into mobile home park investing?
Yeah. I would say the majority of our coaching clients came from some real estate background, not all, not all. And some have been successful without real estate background. But I would say if you've got some sort of experience with single families, you're gonna transition easier. There is a learning curve in general to go to commercial real estate, any type of commercial real estate. So if you understand how a title works, if you understand how um, a simple transaction, a single family home transaction, simple transaction works, it's easier to then convert that into a commercial real estate because there's just a lot of basics that you already know. But that being said, you don't have to have the experience. Somebody who has a business background or single family real estate background would be, you know, they're going to have a faster learning period. But not necessary. Yeah, I would say there's going to be some things that a a single family real estate investor is going to pick up on quicker.
Can you talk about one of the toughest deals or biggest setbacks you've had to get through?
Yeah. I mean, I would say some of the biggest setbacks are deals that we've had to kill. We've put it under contract. We've spent months and months and months doing research. I mean, like, it's not so the difference between a single family home and a commercial property a lot of times is time and the amount of due diligence that goes into it, right? A single family home, you can put under contract, close as soon as title's clear almost in most cases. Where with commercial property, there's just it's like you're buying a business. Okay. So there's a lot of complexities. You're looking at the financial aspects of it. You're looking at the legal aspects of it. You're looking at the physical aspects of it. You're dealing with zoning. You're dealing with, just all these different things that you don't have to deal with on single family. So you can put in literally your inspection period might be 3 months. In some cases, it's not the norm, but you're probably at least 45 to 60 days for due diligence or inspection period. And it can sometimes go 6 months. Like I've had deals that went nine, 9 months just to get a deal closed. So I would say one of the biggest challenges is you go spend a bunch of time and money on these, and then the deal falls through and you're like, oh, I just wasted 6 months of my life on this deal, right?
Yeah.
Now, that being said, dodged a bullet, right? It's probably because we found something that made it, less attractive than we initially thought. And that's why you have a thorough due diligence process that you follow to make sure that you're checking all the boxes and you're not making mistakes and you're buying good assets. But it doesn't mean that you don't have, a rough day that day when you have to cancel the contract and you just go, oh, I can't believe we just spent all that time on this. But it is what it is. I also bought a deal that was in a location early on that the demographics really didn't fit the business model, meaning we want to have a property that has all the tenants owning the homes and paying us lot rent. We really don't want to be in the rental business where we own the homes. And I bought a community in an area that really supported more of a rental model just because it was a lower income area. And I didn't really understand the importance of those demographics. And once we bought it, we'd rehab the homes, we'd sell them off, the ones that were rentals, but then people would buy them and then they would default like 6 months, 12 months later, and we would go all the way back and start all over again. And the property had just tons and tons of turnover. The whole reason you buy a mobile home park is so that it isn't as management intense and you don't have the turnover like an apartment building. And this location was just always going to have that turnover. And ultimately, we still have it, but it's just a grind. I mean, it's one of those properties where it's profitable, but it's just a headache to deal with. And our team gets burnt out on it. And it's like as soon as you think that you've turned the corner, you've got more evictions coming up. It's like, oh, we're going to get those units back. And it's just, it's not, it's a major operational burden to deal with. So yeah, I'd say that's probably a direct mistake that we've made.
What's the most common mistake that you see newer investors in this space make?
Well, there's a bunch. But one of the main mistakes is they think that they are just buying dirt and renting dirt and that it's going to be easy. They underestimate the effort that it takes to turn around a mobile home park. Now, that being said, once the property is stabilized and running smoothly, they are a lot less work than buying a lot of other property types. But most aren't buying clean, stabilized, high quality properties. They're typically buying those that need the turnaround, that need to be improved and have a lot of operational issues. And so they get into it and they go, oh, I'm just renting dirt. No, you're going to be a busy, busy person for 1 to 2 years, and you're going to earn every penny of that upside that that you're going to earn, but it is super profitable. So I'd say they underestimate the work. We saw a bunch of people kind of come from the apartment and self-storage space. Right after COVID, they were kind of looking for cash flow because they couldn't get it in the other property types. They'd come over to mobile home parks thinking it was easy, and they were like, okay, this is way different than I thought. another thing that I would say is two things. They either over analyze and research or they under analyze and research, and neither is good. What I mean by that is they over research to the point where they will never buy anything because they don't have a clear buy box, and they're just researching and researching and researching, and they don't have the confidence to actually pull the trigger. On the other end, they under research and they buy bad deals because they think they're just buying a single family home, and they don't do a phase one environmental. They don't do zoning reports. They don't do a lot of the things that you need to do to protect yourself. And then they get into it. They go, whoa, yeah, now I know why the seller financed this deal to me at 95%, 5% down, whatever. It's like, oh, there was a hook there. He was just trying to get out of it.
It was
And
too good to be true.
it was too good to be true, and they just didn't know
Yeah.
what to look for. So I would say that sweet spot is, understanding what you're buying and then doing the proper due diligence with a clear target of what you're trying to aim. It is either a good deal or it's a bad deal, right? There is a difference. And a lot of times, probably one of the most common questions I get is, how do you know if it's a good deal? Well, number one, what do you define as a good deal from a return metric standpoint? Does it meet all the returns metrics that you're aiming for and the requirements that you're looking for that define it as a good deal? And then secondly, do all the due diligence boxes check off? If you can cross those, you're good. But I think if you don't hone in on your buy box and specifically what a good deal is and know the proper due diligence, you're always going to struggle with either one end of the spectrum or the other.
Yeah, I love that you talked about it in that sense because you're right. It's either people analyze too much and don't take action, or they take action and they really shouldn't have. So I'm glad that
Yes.
you kind of talked a little bit about that and explained to our listeners that you do need to have the correct amount of research, due diligence, and it also helps to have someone know that business a little bit more. So can you take a little bit of time and talk a little bit about what you do to coach students, a little bit about your program and how it works?
Yeah, before I get into that, I would say that, you know, if you're wholesaling homes, you can kind of wing it, right? Like there's not a lot of risk there. There's not a lot of money on the table, and that's what makes it so great. You do not want to take that same mindset into any type of commercial real estate, whether it's mobile home parks or other. You're buying a highly um, complex asset that has, income going on. It's got, zoning and environmental and all that stuff that you need to understand. And so getting that baseline knowledge and working with somebody who's done it a lot is going to protect you. And it's going to make sure that you actually are confident when you do pull the trigger that you bought a good deal, right? And I don't want to make this a pitch fest, so I'll just say that, my education company, Real Cash Flow, is really just an opportunity for people who are really serious to buy their first or their next mobile home park to be able to work hand in hand with me on a weekly basis where we look at deals. I do deal reviews. I get on weekly calls with them. I partner with my coaching clients, and it's literally like having somebody on your board of directors that has, what, 12 years of experience doing it and 100 million plus in acquisitions experience, sitting there and looking over your deals with you to say, yes, that's good, watch out for this, whatever. I mean, it's very hands-on, and we actually have a done for you process as well, where someone can say, I don't have time to do the cold calling because I have a full-time job, but I need the lead flow coming in at the top of my funnel. And so we actually have cold callers that can dial for them. We can provide the data so that the leads come through, and then for them. And for the most part, we found that when people do that, they actually get more results because they don't have to worry about finding people to skip trace data and do the cold, they don't have to find the time to do the cold calling or have all the skills needed to just sit there and dial for hours and hours. It's like teed up for them. So long story short, we're seeing a lot of success. Just had a couple of clients that bought their first park. It was 109 site mobile home park in North Carolina. They just closed last week. So like we're seeing a lot of success every week. Pretty exciting.
That's great to
And
hear.
it's fun for me because I get to talk shop all day with these guys.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great to hear. I mean, with our coaching students, I feel like the confidence is kind of one of the thing that they're missing the most. So
Yeah.
that's kind of what we help them with, right? We have the experience, we have the knowledge, we've seen the ups and downs. Like you said, we know what to look for and what to avoid. And so we're really big on trying to build their confidence because we think that that's kind of the piece that's missing most often, and one of the things that really helps their mindset, right? Can you talk a little bit about the mindset of what the type of mindset that's really important to have in real estate investing, kind of along the lines of, how do you get past failures? How do you teach your students that, hey, this might not work out, but if it does, you're going to learn something and you're going to, hopefully move on from it. So can you talk a little bit about the mindset about not giving up, even if you do fail?
Yeah, I would say there's probably one of the biggest killers of high potential people is they ride the roller coaster. And what I mean by that is they work hard when they are excited and feel good, and they mentally and physically take a break when they don't feel good about it or they're not excited and they're not emotionally pumped up about it. Okay. And the problem with that is if you look at your business, your real estate investing business as a pipeline, as soon as you lose pressure, everything starts to flow backwards, right? And so you need to keep the pressure on. And if you realize that what you're doing today is likely going to produce a transaction either a month, 3 months, 6 months, 2 years from now, every time you pause, you lose momentum and you lose those leads and you have to start all over again. And so, if you think about it this way, if I call a seller one time, I might as well not have called them at all, because the amount of follow-up that I need to have, at least in our business, is consistent over and over and over. I have to build a real relationship. Calling someone one time and then having a bad day and be like, I'm going to take, I'm not going to do anything for a couple of days. And then you go a week, 2 weeks, month, and then you're so far behind on your follow-up and everything. You'll never get traction. I mean, that's really any business, not just real estate investing. You have to do the work. You have to have a plan. You got to know the exact steps to follow from an actionable standpoint, like daily, that's going to produce the results, top of funnel, right? That moves through your pipeline. And then you have to actually do it regardless of how you feel. Like, I'll be honest. There are some days, I'd say at least once a month, maybe twice, where I just say, screw it. Sell it all. Be done. I don't need to do this. It's not worth the stress, the headache. I could be hanging out with my family, doing whatever. And the next morning, I wake up and I put my butt to work. Like, I just do it anyways. And what's interesting is that once you get in the routine of doing the work and you remove the emotions, you'll do that naturally. Like, yeah, I might pause in the afternoon if I just am having an insanely bad day, because everybody has that every once in a while. I might be like, you know what, it's 4:30. I'm just done with all this for the day. And then I rest my mind and then I get back on track the next day. I just don't even think about it the next day. I'm like, yeah, yesterday sucked, but boom, I got to go back to what I was doing, because that's how you create the momentum. So get out of the emotional side, quit thinking about what's working and not from an energy standpoint. Like, just do the work anyways. Doesn't mean you don't tweak and don't critique and tweak what you're doing to improve, but you don't stop and start based on how you feel.
Yeah, that's great advice. That's really important for people to understand that it really is about just putting in the work. It is about just grinding it out, doing it repetitive, and like you said, make it become a habit. Once it's a habit, it's a lot easier to do that stuff every day. You need to do it. You know what it is you need to do, and like you said, just push through. If you're having a bad day or whatever, just go through and
Do it.
do your task. Do the steps that you need to take to get to those goals.
The equation that I always give everybody in our group is volume multiplied by consistency equals results. What I mean by that is if you don't have the volume of lead gen that you need, or the volume of anything really, but let's just talk from a lead gen standpoint to create deals. If you don't have the volume, meaning let's say if you need to talk to 1,000 people a month, cold calling, whatever, and you call 10 a week, you are not going to talk to enough people to get the odds in your favor to get the deal, right? So it doesn't matter. You could call 10 people every week forever and you're never going to get the result. Why? Not enough volume, right? It's a numbers game. On the other hand, you could call 1,000 people this week, but not call anybody next week and not be consistent at it. And again, you touch them one time, it's not enough. You are not going to get results. You might as well have never called anybody. In either one of those scenarios, you've got to have high volume and you've got to have high consistency and you'll get the results. And you might say, well, I have a full-time business. I have a full-time job. I can't call 1,000 people a month or 2,000 people a month or 500 or 200 people a month. I don't have time for that. Well, then you have to recognize that you're running a real estate investment business and you have to find someone who can do it for you, or you have to find a way to create that high volume, high consistency marketing in order to get the results. Otherwise, you will not get the results.
Wow, what a great chat. Thank you so much for sharing all this amazing information and wisdom. We really appreciate it. I want to talk a little bit about the free book giveaway that we're doing. For each episode, we're giving away some real estate books, business books, and for listeners to enter, just like the episode from wherever you're listening to and comment which book you would like to receive. So you have up to 5 days from the air date to enter, and one lucky winner will be chosen and we'll ship the book straight to your door. So
Sweet.
Here's some of the ones we have available.
The 10X Rule, Profit from Real Estate, E-Myth, that's a good one. Robert Allen, Creating Wealth, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. You got some cash flow quadrant. You got all the winners. What's that bottom one? What was that bottom one?
This
Can't see it on the screen.
Dean Garozzi.
Okay, right now, huh? Never read that one.
I actually haven't read that one, I'll be honest. But if someone's interested, we'll send it to your house for free if you like and comment on the episode. So thanks for the interview. Thanks for the time. I just want to leave people with a little bit of a final thought here. A lot of people assume that mobile home park investing is out of reach. Maybe it's not mainstream. It feels complicated, and it can seem like a later in your career type of strategy. But as Mario shared today, mindset beats experience. You don't have to be a flipper or realtor to start. You just need to commit, learn, and take action. The mobile home space is full of opportunity, but like anything else in real estate investing, it rewards consistency and creative thinking. Start with where you are, get some guidance, and stay persistent. That's the winning mindset. Thanks for joining us today, everyone. Thanks again, Mario, for your time.
Thank you, Ian.
This was a great chat, and I really appreciate it. So
this was fun.
Have
Thank
a good
you.
day, everyone. Thanks.